honestly.
No, they said yes.
Oh, they did. Okay, cool. How's it going, Ram fans? Welcome to the return of the Monday Night Sports Show. I'm Brendon Fairbairn.
And I'm Madeline Davis, here to fill you in on how the Rams fared in their first sporting events with fans in nearly 2 years. Moby Madness was back in full force with the annual whiteout game for CSU Volleyball season opener. Were they able to pull out the W? Wait and see.
Teddy Bridgewater has beaten out Drew Lock to take the Broncos' starting job. How will this impact Denver in their Week 1 matchup against the Giants?
And to end off the night, we'll be highlighting some of our hot takes throughout the sports world in our new segment, Hot or Not. All of this and more on CTV Sports starting right now.
Moby Madness was finally back this past Saturday with over 5,000 fans in attendance when CSU took on the Northwestern Wildcats in their season opener over the weekend. The Rams ended up dropping this one 3-1 in this year's whiteout game, but Coach Hilbert's squad still had some bright spots on offense. Sophomore outside hitter Kennedy Stanford led the team with 12 kills, while redshirt junior setter Sierra Zierman led the team with an impressive 28 assists. On the other hand, the backup offense was just not there, with 11 hitting errors in the third set alone. And in the other three, they hit a dismal .139 as a team. The Rams did have struggles blocking a season ago, and it seems those struggles came back to bite them in their season opener. CSU only had 4 blocks on the night compared to the Wildcats' 9. The bottom line is this. The Rams are going to have to shake off their first game jitters by Tuesday night when they go on the road for an in-state battle against the University of Northern Colorado Bears at Bank of Colorado Arena.
Sticking with some more news in CSU sports, as the Rams head into their first matchup of the season against South Dakota State on Friday, excitement is beginning to brew here in Ram country. Here are some of the main storylines to look out for. Let's start things off with a look at last season. After a difficult year which saw the Rams not only battling against their opponent each week on the field, but also against the dangers of an ongoing pandemic, CSU sputtered to a disappointing 1-3 record in Coach Adazio's first season on campus. Obviously, the now second-year head coach is looking for a much better outcome this time around. Now shifting the focus onto this season, redshirt senior Todd Centeo was named the starter at quarterback for the fall 2021 slate before spring ball even kicked off. And based off of what Ram fans saw out of number 7's limited opportunities last year, they definitely have the right to be disappointed at the decision to name Centeo the starter so early on in off-season work. The former transfer from Temple started last year's opening matchup against Fresno State before coming off the bench in 2 other contests as the season went on, completing 14 of 36 passes for a lowly 38.8 completion rate, 207 yards, and a touchdown and interception apiece. And fans weren't the only ones that were left disappointed in Adazio's decision to name Centeo as the squad starter so early on. As he entered camp this summer, Boston College transfer Matt Vellecci hoped to get an opportunity to prove that he deserves a starting gig just as much as number 7 does, saying in a recent interview, "I came here to compete for the starting job, and that's what I'm going to do every day," end quote. Vellecci's continued fight for a starting job would have surely elevated what is a young quarterback room, but a lower back injury has put the redshirt junior season in major jeopardy, projected to miss the entire season and leaving a massive hole to fill when it comes to that backup QB spot. After the team's final scrimmage before Friday's game, Adazio acknowledged this glaring weakness. Take a look.
A lot of guys out right now. We got a lot of starters that aren't playing right now. But still, and we got to worry about our backup quarterback situation right now. As many of you know that Matt had a lower body injury and probably going to lose him for the year here. So we've got to come up with a backup quarterback. That got a little bit distractful today. But there were some really good high moments, and then there are some, I thought, some poor moments.
Only time will tell which one of the young Rams will step in and take that backup job. But enough talk about CSU. Let's look at the opposition, the defending FCS runner-ups, the South Dakota Jackrabbits, who's coming off of a crushing 21-23 loss in the final 16 seconds against Sam Houston State in last season's FCS championship game. SDSU will surely be looking to come into Canvas this Friday hungry to avenge their last-second heartbreak. And now moving on to their personnel. The Jackrabbits have some quarterback injury problems of their own, with last year's starter Mark Gronkowski out for the year with a knee injury. The pressure is now on sixth-year senior transfer Chris Oladokin. Oladokin is a vet when it comes to being the lead guy at Signal Caller, starting games at both Florida and Samford before landing at South Dakota State. He had his best season in 2019 for the Bulldogs, completing 169 of 272 passes for 2,064 yards and 18 touchdowns. With all of this being said, look, South Dakota is no pushover for a season opening game. Projected to finish at the top of the FCS level once again, expect this one to be a challenging one for the Rams early. Tune in to Fox Sports 1 this Friday at 7 p.m. to catch the reopening of Canvas Stadium to fans.
Moving on to some action in Rams soccer. Their home opener also didn't go as planned, tying with the South Dakota Coyotes in a double overtime battle last Thursday. And while the score may not show it, CSU did play solid on the offensive side of the ball. But fouls and sloppy mistakes were the difference between a tie and the first win for new head coach Keely Hagan. CSU had 10 fouls compared to the Coyotes' 4. Even with these mistakes, the Rams had double the shots on goals, but still couldn't make anything happen. With 17 total shots, but only 6 on goal, all Mountain West forward Gracie Armstrong led the way with 3 out of the 6. The goalies on both sides of the ball were the star performers, with 6 saves for the Coyotes' Emma Harkenrode and 3 for CSU's Amanda Green. Both goalkeepers stopped key charges in overtime to keep their teams alive. Looking ahead, if the Rams can keep this defensive intensity up that we've seen over the last week against Denver and South Dakota, while at the same time doing a better job at feeding their best offensive player, Gracie Armstrong, CSU can easily bounce back in this young season. The Rams will look to get their first win this Thursday night against their in-state rival, the University of Northern Colorado Bears in Greeley.
And now let's switch it up from the collegiate ranks and into the pros. Coming off of a 13-10 win in extra innings to end off their doubleheader against the Cubs, the Rockies entered their weekend series at Dodger Stadium with one goal in mind: beat LA. Now, accomplishing this goal was going to be easier said than done, with Colorado coming into this series with an alarmingly low winning percentage on the road in a terrible recent history at Dodger Stadium. But look, Dodgers came into this one exhausted after a nearly 6-hour-long game to decide a winner against the Padres. So the Rockies might have a chance, right? Well, if Game 1 of the 3-game series was any inclination, they definitely did. Starting off strong with a 2-run homer from right fielder Charlie Blackmon to give Colorado a quick 2-0 lead in the top of the first. But in true Dodger fashion, both Will Smith and Trey Turner responded in the bottom of the third with a solo shot each to tie things up. Later on, after CJ Crone launched a ball to the Crone zone, things were looking up for Colorado once again. But any Rockies fan knows that one run isn't always enough to secure the win. But in the top of the ninth, any doubt was erased after catcher Elias Diaz decided to join the home run party with a solo shot to left center, securing the win for the Rocks. Moving on to Game 2, things got off to another strong start for Colorado, taking an early lead on a Connor Joe sac fly. But the lead wasn't held for long, with Trey Turner scoring on a double play in the bottom of the third to even things out 1-1. And unfortunately for Rockies fans, pitcher John Gray exited the game after only 2 innings after suffering a forearm injury, proving to be a costly loss in what has been a rough pitching rotation as of late. In relief of Gray, Daniel Bard gave up 2 out of the 4 runs the Colorado bullpen surrendered on the night, allowing LA to win it with a score of 5-2. To end the triple header off, Antonio Sensatella took the mound for the Rocks and came through with one of his best performances of the season, pitching 7 scoreless innings and keeping the Dodgers to only 2 hits overall. It was this dominant pitching performance and an early 3-run jack from CJ Cron that allowed the Rockies to take Sunday's game 5-0 in the series win. After this successful weekend, Colorado shifts their focus to another 3-game set against the Rangers, which kicked off tonight down in Dallas.
Jumping from the diamond and onto the field, the Denver Broncos just wrapped up their 2021 preseason with a 3-0 record. A great start for Denver, but preseason ultimately doesn't mean anything in the end. Let's look at Denver's chances to find success when the games actually count. As most of you already know, the Broncos have a pretty complete roster across the board. But their biggest question mark remains the same: the QB position, where they've gone through 11 players since 2016. Last Wednesday, head coach Vic Fangio announced that 8-year vet Teddy Bridgewater would get the nod at signal caller over third-year QB Drew Lock. As a Broncos fan, I personally don't get it. To me, it seems like they're just settling for Bridgewater's higher floor and completely ignoring Drew Lock's potentially high ceiling. Now, Lock only really has 1 full season under his belt as a starter, but he did show some real improvement throughout these 3 preseason games, with 298 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. But to be fair, Bridgewater didn't play too bad either, with 241 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, and no picks as well. At the end of the day, I feel like Fangio chose Bridgewater just to save his job. If the Broncos have another losing season, Fangio is most likely gone. But regardless of who coaches Denver next year, Bridgewater is clearly not the future of this team due to his age and extensive injury history. But Locke, on the other hand, still has a chance to be that guy, if developed correctly, thanks to his raw arm talent and athleticism. Even though it might seem like I've only been bashing Teddy Bridgewater, I still think that he can have a great season with a great supporting cast around him. You saw what he could do with solid pieces around him in Minnesota and in New Orleans when he filled in for an injured Drew Brees and went 5-0 in his absence. Denver has those types of pieces in place with a serviceable offensive line and weapons such as Jerry Jeudy, Sutton, Fant, Tim Patrick, and KJ Hamler to throw to. Overall, I really like what I saw from the Broncos on both sides of the ball. The offense limited turnovers, and the defense didn't allow even a single touchdown. If the Broncos can get solid QB play and stay healthy, this team can easily be a playoff team. Well, that's all we have for your Colorado sports news. Don't go away. Madeline kicks off her brand new segment right after the break.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Welcome back to the Break Rams and to my new weekly segment, Missed Moments, where I get you caught up on everything you may have missed this week in the endless sea of scores and updates that is sports. So let's get right into it. With the first rounds of the U.S. Open unfolding as we speak, there is a lot of talk about who will take the 2 titles on either sides of the bracket, especially after many of the sport's big names like Serena, Roger Federer, and Rafa Nadal withdrew from this year's tournament. Athletes who have all won at least 4 Open titles in the past. And with Federer and Nadal out of the draw and the calendar slam on the line, everything is looking up for number 1 ranked Novak Djokovic to take the men's title this year in Queens. Now the women's event, on the other hand, well, that's way less predictable, with 12 former major winners in the draw compared to the mere 2 for the men. All eyes will be on 3-seed and reigning U.S. Open champ Naomi Osaka as she enters her first Grand Slam back since pulling out after the first round of the French Open earlier this year. Now, she did go on to compete at this year's Olympic Games, losing in the third round to silver medalist Marketa Vondrousova, but she's definitely still going to be a little bit rusty. While all attention might be on the young Japanese star, world number 1 Ash Barty is coming into this year's Open as the favorite to take it all. All of this comes after she put up a spectacular run of victories at the French Open and took home a Wimbledon title, where she defeated the Czech Republic's Karolina Pliskova in 3 sets. Barty is looking as strong as ever and could easily take the title if she keeps up this level of play. Moving along, someone else to keep an eye on has to be young Canadian Bianca Andreescu. This will be the 21-year-old's first U.S. Open since her incredible run at the tourney back in 2019, where she defeated Serena Williams in straight sets. Since then, Andreescu is yet to find the same success she found 2 years ago, where she was virtually unstoppable. But she hopes to use this tournament as a way to gain back momentum and prove that she is still a top contender in the women's game. And now moving across the pond to another sport you might have missed, the Premier League was hit with some massive news. Cristiano Ronaldo has left Juventus to come back to where it all started, Manchester United, signing a 2-year deal to join the squad. In an Instagram post posted last Friday, Ronaldo addressed his departure from Juventus, reading, "I gave my heart and soul for Juventus, and I'll always love the city of Turin until my final days. I will always be one of you. You are now part of my history as I feel I am part of yours." End quote. After a disappointing outcome to the 2020 to 2021 Premier League season that saw them finish second behind crosstown rivals Manchester City, United was looking for something to elevate their team to the next level. And by adding one of the best players in the world, it seems like they did just that. Ronaldo is expected to make his Man United return on September 11th when United hosts Newcastle. And well, Ram fans, that's all I have for this week's Missed Moments, but don't go anywhere. Brendon is up next after the break with some fantasy football talk.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably going to turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Thanks for sticking with us through another break, Ram fans. The NFL regular season is 2 weeks away, and that means that fantasy season is in full effect. In my new segment, The Waiver Wire, I'll be giving you some weekly fantasy football advice on who to draft, trade, pick up, and drop as the season goes on. All so you can have bragging rights as the top player in your league. Let's start things off with new Atlanta Falcons running back Mike Davis. The 28-year-old veteran finally got a chance at the starting role after Panthers star back Christian McCaffrey went down in 2020. From weeks 3 to 8, Davis finished as RB7 in PPR leagues, catching 30 passes and giving him plenty of upside as a receiver. And with the impressive year he had, Davis used it to land as the RB1 in the Falcons' backfield, where he's nearly uncontested for touches. His skills as a pass catcher work well with a high-scoring offense that consists of quarterback Matt Ryan, wideout Calvin Ridley, and rookie tight end Kyle Pitts. Not to mention that the Falcons also have new head coach in Arthur Smith, who runs a first scheme helped propel Derrick Henry to 2,000 yards last season. Davis's rushing and receiving combo should give you plenty of volume, and he has a perfect mid to late round pick for your flex spot. And speaking of opportunity, next up on the list is Gus Edwards of the Baltimore Ravens. With the devastating news of J.K. Dobbins tearing his ACL in their last preseason game, Edwards' fantasy value shot through the roof. Looking at the numbers, he's posted at least 700 yards and averaged at least 5 yards per carry in each of his last 3 years. So there shouldn't be any doubt in his ability to carry the load. And with Mark Ingram leaving for Houston, his competition for carries is nearly non-existent if the Ravens don't decide to pick up a free agent like Todd Gurley. There is, of course, former MVP quarterback Lamar Jackson that can sometimes act as their RB1, but in run-heavy and goal line sets, Edwards is getting the rock. He might not crack double-digit receptions, but I feel like he's still going to be undervalued in drafts because many people don't know his name and look down on him for not being much of a receiver. I recommend picking up the bruising back in round 5 or later for a late round gem. And to end the night off, we have Los Angeles Chargers veteran tight end Jared Cook, who enters his 12th NFL season. After another productive year with New Orleans, Cook found himself on another team with tight end problems. After injury-prone Hunter Henry was picked up by the Pats, it left the Chargers with a huge void at tight end. Cook's fantasy finishes over the last 4 seasons are as tight end number 13, 5, 7, and 17. And even though his receiving yards and receptions have declined in each of the last 2 seasons, Cook has made up for that production with his work in the red zone. Over the past 3 seasons, he's scored 22 times. Now that's a type of upside that people don't seem to pay attention to, especially at his older age. With those stats, Cook should easily be a top red zone weapon for reigning Offensive Rookie of the Year, Justin Herbert. As he develops more and more into a top NFL quarterback, if I had to pick, I'd say to draft Cook in the 7th and beyond rounds to truly get a steal as a backup or even as your starter. Well, those are my 3 sleeper picks for you before you draft your team in the coming week. Next time, I'll have 3 more players that as soon as they hit the waiver wire, you shouldn't hesitate to grab. And Rams, don't go anywhere just yet, as Madeline and I have a brand new segment to introduce to you called Hot or Not. Right after the break, you won't want to miss it.
Queen is just my everything.
His smile did it. His smile, his eyes, his knowledge. My landlord, he decided that he wanted me to move based on the fact that I was transgender. Let's just respect people in everyday life for just being human.
Welcome back to the break, Ram fans, and welcome to our new segment, Hot or Not, where we put our pride on the line and go out on a limb with some sports takes you might think we're crazy for even suggesting. But hey, we don't think they are. Starting things off, we have Brendon's outlook on the Broncos, where his diehard fandom might have gone to his head. Brendon, you think Denver is going to win more than 8.5 games this year with Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback?
Absolutely, Madeline. Hopefully for Broncos country, I think they sneak their way back into the postseason and break the 5-year drought they've been on since Peyton Manning rode off into the sunset. So let's start off with what they do best, which is their defense. According to Pro Football Focus, they do have the best safety duo in the league with Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons. Cannot forget about Bryce Callahan, Ronald Derby, Fuller, and the rookie out of Alabama, Surtain. But the real studs on the Broncos defense is Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. Their pass rushing duo is going to be one of the best in the league, and I'm interested to see how that complements the Broncos' great secondary. The Broncos also have great offensive weapons in second-year wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, who's one of the best route-running receivers in the league already. We already know what Cortland Sutton can do. KJ Hamler, I hope Teddy Bridgewater uses him more in the deep pass game instead of the rollouts, because I feel like he's more effective in that way. Noah Fant is a big body security blanket that could break it loose. We've seen him done it before. And overall, the offensive line, Garrett Bowles, top 100 player. You also have Cushenberry and Dalton Reisner, who also had great rookie seasons. As long as they can protect Teddy Bridgewater and let him do what he does best as a game manager and protect the ball, the Broncos can honestly win more than 8.5 games. they're not going to beat out the Chiefs as the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed, but they can sneak in as a 5, 6, or 7 seed, winning 8, 9, 10 games. Hey, once you hit the playoffs, anything could happen. So that's why Denver will win more than what Vegas projects them as. Madeline, you had something to say about the Padres' chances at a wild card spot?
You got that right, Brendon. I think San Diego are the biggest frauds in the National League. Here's why. So first of all, when we come to production, star Fernando Tatis Jr. is basically the only person on the team that is actually producing to his expected levels. Maybe you could throw in Jake Cronenworth, maybe some other people, but mostly Tatis is carrying the team. And that was very prevalent when he got hurt and they had some serious issues. But also, they spent so much money this offseason. They spent so much money and they didn't get much in return for it. One of the biggest people they got was Blake Snell, who was the 2018 Cy Young winner. So, of course, he was expected to do well, but he has almost a 5 ERA and is averaging at less than 5 innings pitched per game, which is not strong. And then Eric Hosmer, Eric Hosmer's been a bust since they got him. He was so good in Kansas City, and they got him because they needed to fill this first baseman hole, and this was when they were still in that rebuilding phase. He was the first one they got out of the big ones. But he just has never produced, and he's hitting way below anybody projected him to do. Yu Darvish was another off-season addition that they got, and Yu Darvish has been good, but he's been inconsistent. But he struggled with inconsistency his whole career, so it's not that surprising. But overall, they just spent so much money and are getting nothing out of it. I mean, they're only a couple of games above 500. At this rate, they're not even going to get a wild card spot. And being 15 and a half games back, there's no chance.
Well, Rams fans, that's all the time we have for tonight's show. Thank you for tuning in to the Monday Night Sports, the first Monday Night Sports TV show. Tune in tomorrow for Tuesday night for the first news show of the night. Thank you. Damn, I had to ad-lib that.